In 2014, our goal was to educate and inspire the next generation of young Black leaders. So we set out to find the nation's best of the best to reveal the secrets to success. Our belief is that we should teach the young early the things that we learn late. Our lives are shifting the culture. Our lives are changing the narrative. This is the ShineHard Conversation. Welcome back to another episode of the ShineHard Conversation. I'm your host, Johnny Bailey, and this week I'm here in New York at the Viacom Studios with VH1 Save the Music Director of Talent Relations, Trell Thomas.
How you doing?
Trell is my guy. He's done amazing things navigating his career in the PR and entertainment industry. He's worked with Oprah Magazine, he's worked with the New York Times, he's worked with the Obama administration and a number of other entertainment celebrities. I'm really excited to have him on the show. Today he's going to talk about how he got into this industry, the blueprints on how we can get into that industry, and of course, share some gems of his personal success. So without further ado, Trell, time to shine.
Let's do it, man.
Bet. So they say the key to longevity is the foundation.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood and what growing up was like for you.
Sure. And I am from a very small town in South Carolina called Cassett.
Okay.
Nobody's ever heard of it. We have like one stoplight. And I grew up probably like this. If my parents would describe me, they would say that I was a very curious, very ambitious, and maybe overly helpful child. And I would elaborate in the fact that, like, I can remember, being small, like going to the grocery store, and I'd always ask my mom for 2 quarters. Like, there was a gum machine. I was like, "Can I get 2 quarters?" And she'd be like, "The gum only costs a quarter. Like, why do you need 2?" And she told me that she would catch me giving like a random kid in the store another quarter. And she was like, "That's what I kind of felt like. You were different."
Yeah.
And I think that passion for helping others kind of followed me throughout my life. I grew up watching the news. The news is where we got all of our information, right? It's
like local news or national news?
The local news. Like my mom, every morning, the news was on as we were getting ready for school. She was like, and the news anchor told us how we should dress. He told us where we should go, where we should not go.
Yeah.
All of those things, and that's where we got all of our information from. And I remember like there was a moment where I was like, you know what? I'm going to change the world, and I'm going to do it by being that guy.
The news anchor.
Yeah, I was going to be the news anchor.
That's what you wanted to be when you were a kid. Like,
yeah,
I want to be on TV.
I want to be on TV, and I'm going to tell people how they can live their best life. And that kind of like followed me. I in elementary and middle school, I would always write stories and tell people stories. And a teacher stopped me, and she was like, "Hey, you need to look into broadcast journalism." And I had no idea what that is. I was like, okay. And then she explained it to me, and she mentioned the news anchor, and I was like, yeah, that's it.
It all came together.
And so I went to college, mainly because my dad told me, he was like, you're gonna apply to college or you're gonna join the Army. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to the Army. So I'm like, where can I apply? Where do I start? So I applied for some schools. I got into Winthrop University. Winthrop, yeah. Oh, nice. Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Okay. Most people know us because we're often the Cinderella team in the NCAA championship.
I might have picked you to win 1 or 2 games before.
Yeah, that's our claim to fame. So I'm always like, you remember? And people are like, yeah, that's you. So that's us. And I went to school for broadcast journalism and finished out, interned at NBC Universal, which is the headquarters of NBC in Charlotte. Began to learn more and more about the news industry from the inside. Stayed there even after my internship was over with. I remember running out of gas on the highway, selling back my Jordans that I paid over $100 for like $12.
So wait, this is while you're at Winthrop?
Yeah,
after?
well, this was right when I finished. So I did the internship my junior year and then my senior year, and even after I graduated, my internship was over. I just kept showing up.
Oh, okay.
And
is that a good strategy?
it worked. I got a job out of it. I got a job out of it, yeah. So eventually the position opened and they hired me.
Nice.
And I started working as an archives producer, where I would like feed, you know, like a story happened in Nebraska and the station in New York wanted the story. I would feed it over the wire to New York. And so I did.
What does that mean, feed it over the wire?
I'd get the tape from the station in Nebraska. I'd record the part that New York wanted. I'd put that on a separate tape. I'd feed that tape into a machine and send it to New York.
Okay.
So New York could have what was going on in a different place.
Has that process changed in 2017?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in that situation in a while, but yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure it's like
that was like point click.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it's like a really quick thing. It wasn't like that tedious, but it was definitely. If it hadn't changed, I'd be upset.
Right, of course.
And I learned more and more about the news there, and I figured that it was like, I found out that it was really top down. Like, it was like the news director basically told people what they were going to put out, and like, it felt very contrived, and like, things were sensationalized. And now, like, being an adult and seeing like all the things that are going on in the world now, what people choose to show people and what they choose not, I'm like, you know what, like, I was on, like my inclination was right.
So how much of the news is propaganda and how much of it is actual reality?
It's a tough question. I think that it depends on whose agenda it is at the time. I think.
So is it like studio politics, where if you have, like, I watch Being Mary Jane, right? So I see like the news anchor have clout, so is she able to actually give more of the news that she wants to give versus the producer, or is it like a balance of power in that way?
It's definitely political.
Okay.
In the sense that, like, if you're liked more, if somebody owes you a favor, like, it's just like all those like politics, like inner working politics. But like the thing that really bothered me is just like, I just felt like there were stories that weren't being told that people needed to know.
Hello.
And so I was just like, you know what, maybe being the next Ed Bradley is not necessarily what I want to do, or maybe it's not this path that I want to take.
Right.
Because everybody has a different path. I was following, I think, in my mind, I was following the Oprah path. Like,
in what way?
Like, yeah, I was just like, oh, like Oprah did, she was a reporter and she was an anchor. Like, I was like, oh, I have to do that type of thing.
I see.
And then I learned that I was just like, somebody actually told me, like, your journey is your journey, Don't try to like make somebody else's journey your journey. Like, it's your own story. And I was like, you know what, I can write my own story. And so I still stayed at NBC because I was young and I didn't know, like, but I started to, like, my mind was like open then. And I remember one day a friend texted me and he was like, hey, guess what? And I was like, what's up? And he was like, I got offered a job on the Obama campaign in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm not gonna take it. I was like, what? You're not gonna take the job on the Obama campaign? Are you crazy? Like, what's up? Who?
But back then, Obama was kind of a arbitrary name.
Yeah, we were in the South, where like nobody thought like that was having a black man be president was even possible.
Right.
It was Atlanta, Georgia, which has got its own series of issues, and Georgia in general, because it was like Atlanta is like a different place, but like Georgia as a whole is like
that's the South.
Yeah, and so people just didn't see it for him. But I, luckily enough, like I'm in a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, and we got a chance to step for him during the primaries when he came through Rock Hill, South Carolina, and after that we got to stay, and they were like, you can meet him. And I stayed, and I was captivated by every dude. I'm like on the edge of my seat, hanging on to every word he said.
He's a brilliant orator.
Beyond, and one thing, the passion and the genuineness is there. Like, you can't fake that.
You can't fake authenticity.
No. You can write the most beautiful speech or have the most beautiful speech written for you, but you can't, like, when I look you in your eyes, like, you can't fake what's behind that, And I saw it. And it was bright and clear, and then we got to meet him afterward, and it was like, I felt like I'd known him all my life.
Oh, man.
It was like one of those things, and And
Papa Barack, I've been missing
yeah,
you.
it was like, oh, what's up? Like, what's going on? And he was so gracious and kind. And I remember telling one of my fraternity brothers, I was like, whatever I need to do to get this man elected, I will do. Like, send me wherever, do whatever. So when my friend told me he got this offer and he's not gonna take it, I'm like, yo, I'll take it.
That's real.
Who told you?
Right.
And he was like, oh, such and such told me. And I was like, oh, I know him. He was another guy that went to school with us. And so I texted him. I'm like, Antoine, did you talk to Rashawn about this? And he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, I want to do that. And he was like, all right, I'll send you a resume. So he sent my resume to the field director on the Obama campaign.
How does that work? Like, how do you become a part of a political campaign?
I think it's like, I don't have there's not a clear-cut answer for that. I feel like some people fall into it.
And you kind of just get pulled in like here's the guy.
Mean, there's stuff online, you can apply. Some people fall into it. Some people know people who know people. Some people were volunteer and then they become. There were like several avenues, but mine was just like my friend. He was very political in college. He knew people. He sent my resume. The field director ended up sending it to the communications director and she called me, like cold called me and was like, hey, I see you applied for a position in the field, but you have all this communications background. Do you want to come be my assistant? And I was like, wow.
Hello, blessings.
Yeah. But,
rain down on me.
And I didn't mention that this was like 2 weeks after I got offered the full-time job at NBC.
Okay.
So I struggled being an intern.
That was a dilemma.
Dude, I was so stuck. And I really, I meditated on it, I prayed about it. I really thought like long and hard about like what I should do. I talked to my parents and my sisters and people who I thought that had been on the journey before.
How did they feel about it?
Dude.
Because when you're doing something against the grain, a lot of times the people who love you want you to do the safe route, right?
My mom was like, dude, you just got this Fortune 500 job at this Fortune 500 company. Like, don't do that. Don't mess this up. Like, dude, you worked hard for this. Like, go for it. You've been asking me for money for the past couple months. And
I've been funding your campaign.
Yeah, and she's like, no, but man, it was in me, and I was like, I've got it. And so my compromise was I went and talked to my director at the time at NBC, and I was like, hey, and I want to be completely honest because somebody also told me, a brilliant person, that you never lose anything by being honest. And if you do lose it, then it wasn't meant for you anyway. And
That's
so
right.
I was like, I'm just going to be honest. And I told her what it was, and she was like, you know what, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I would be selling you short if I said, don't take it, and if you want to come back here, come back. That was all I needed. Man, as soon as I left there, I was packing up my stuff. I called her back, and I was like, hey, I'm there. She was like, you got to be there. You got to be here in 3 days. So I had 3 days. I had to pack up my life and move it to Atlanta, Georgia, and I did, and it was the most liberating thing I've ever.
So fast forward to where we are today. I mean,
Sure.
we're at Viacom Studios, overlooking Times Square. Obviously, you guys are doing some big, amazing things here.
Yeah.
Talk about the mission of VH1 Save the Music and how your role plays into that.
Yeah, and so at VH1 Save the Music, we restore instrumental music education in public schools across the country. Meaning we go into schools with dormant or non-existent music programs, and we put those programs back into place. And what that does is it helps students, parents, teachers, communities fulfill their potential of success. It helps all of those entities become more successful.
Right.
And so that's the mission of the foundation, and we've been doing that since 1997. So we're at our 20th year anniversary this year.
So are you guys the same entity of VH1, or how does that differentiate?
Yeah, that's a common question, a great question. I'm so glad that you asked it. We operate separately from the channel.
Okay.
We are totally a 501c3 nonprofit organization. VH1 pays for our beautiful office spaces.
Thank you, VH1.
Seriously. Some of our travel and expenses, and our executive director serves in a dual role as both VP of VH1 and executive director of the foundation.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So your role is Director of Talent Relations and Communications.
Sure, yeah.
What do you do?
So it's funny. I was telling you off camera that I wear a lot of hats, but like it runs the gamut. Mainly my role is like I book all the talent for like everything that we do. So from social media takeovers to actually performing at our benefit galas and events that we have across the country. So I book all the talent for that and do everything that comes with that.
Well, you can book me next year. I think my calendar will be open.
Dude, yeah. Maybe we need a couple. Like we have a couple host slots. So
I was totally joking, but I want to come.
Oh, for sure, man. You're totally invited. Forever part of the family now. And then from the comms part of it, I manage our PR team, our social media team, and our marketing. And which ends up being like a lot of like brand partnerships because we do a lot of brand partnerships that have both of those pieces that are very prominent in them. So we have partnerships with Urban Outfitters and JetBlue and Toyota. So I spearhead a lot of that stuff.
So it's very interesting how you found a way to kind of merge your passions of philanthropy and then public relations and entertainment. What does that feel like to just be walking in that purpose?
It feels like destiny. It feels right.
Yeah.
It feels there's a peace about it.
Yeah.
There's an understanding of it. There's a gratefulness that you're just filled with because I've gotten to a point in my life where I feel like what I'm doing is not self-serving. I'm not worried about like a paycheck, or I'm not worried about being able to like flaunt something or being able to say I do this or being able, like my thing is like I'm doing something that is helping people become better.
Absolutely.
And helping people help themselves.
Yeah.
That just feels great.
Yeah,
it
man.
feels good.
One of my favorite quotes is, "Service leads to greatness."
Yeah.
So find a way to serve.
Yeah.
Serve many people, and eventually you kind of ascend through your service. Like it reminds me of Maya Angelou or Barack Obama. They aren't necessarily doing anything extremely like talented per se, but they're just serving at such a high level that they become great, right? So it's really amazing, man. And that also reminds me of when we sit down on this show with so many young millennial influencers that are doing great things. They inspire thousands of people. But what really fascinates me is who inspires the influencers. So if you had a Mount Rushmore of inspiration, 2 or 3 people, who would you say inspires you?
Gosh, I gotta start at home. I gotta say my parents. My parents taught me perseverance. They taught me resourcefulness. They taught me like all of these like pillars that like have allowed me to like navigate life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't realize that's what it was then. Like I didn't realize my dad letting me fall off my bike and not cry and pick me, like cry and then be picked up, but instead be like, hey, he posed a question like, hey, what are you gonna do from here? Are you gonna get back on? Like he asked me, and like I didn't realize then that what he was doing was teaching me to persevere through
adversity.
Whatever. Right, and I didn't realize that then, but now I do. And my mom, I remember we weren't like the richest, so I remember there were times where our lights would be cut off. Like we would come home and we'd be in the dark, and my mom would go get the candles and light them, and it taught me like be resourceful.
Yeah.
Like it's not the end of the world, or like we didn't have hot water,
Yeah.
so we would go and like heat up the water on the stove and that taught me to be resourceful. Like then I was just like, man,
Right.
it's embarrassing. Like I can't like. I don't have like hot water to shower with.
There's definitely a strength to be found from not having much.
Dude, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think that you have to not have much to have it, but I think that there's something that you gain in losing or having lost.
Humble beginnings just makes you into a very unique person. But
so I would combine my parents into one person on my org.
Okay.
Secondly, and this is probably like overdone, but like President, I'm still calling President Barack Obama is one of the most inspirational people.
Rightfully so.
Like, just, I mean, I don't even have to go into it.
Of course
Everybody
not.
out there knows, like, you know, like, he's just a force.
Okay, your parents, Barack Obama, and then give us like one more.
I mean, I don't like, I believe this is like high, right? But like God is like, I'm inspired by like God, like in the higher power that like moves everything, you know? And I believe that like, you know, it's the thing that like keeps me going, that gives me like courage and allows me to be bold when I'm afraid, or allows me to have hope when everything says like nah, you know. So I don't know. I mean, we don't know exactly what he looks like, so I don't know how to like draw him or whatever. But maybe I can put Jesus there.
Okay, we'll take that. So a major pillar of this project, and one of my personal mantras, is passion changes everything.
Sure.
And I say that because I believe passion is the first step to finding your purpose. And like we talked about earlier, I really feel like you're walking in your purpose, but I would like to know, if someone asked you, what would you say is your passion, and when did you know that moment?
My passion, it's so funny, I was at a dinner the other night and they asked me the very same question, but they asked like, what are you passionate about right now?
Right.
My passion overall is like helping people on like a large scale, like being able to help them, being, you know, mentally, physically, financially, whatever, like able to just like help people,
right,
and like help them like realize that they too can shine.
Absolutely.
They have like that in them.
So
yeah, man. Yeah, it's a little drop for you,
Hey.
but seriously, like being able to help people like realize that in themselves.
That's
being
real.
to help people realize that's like that.
So what's been your greatest challenge in efforts to fulfill that purpose?
When you are a bright light in any place, there are people who are intimidated by that, or they are jealous of that, or they want to find like things or ways to like stifle you. And to me, like that has been, you know, like there'll be moments where I'll like, you know that you're doing a good thing, and you know that you're like doing all the right things, but there are people who don't like that, and there are people who don't like it so much that they will do anything to stop you from doing it.
Yeah.
And it's just like getting to the point where you have to be like, put on your sunglasses because I'm still going to shine. You know what I mean?
Hater blockers.
Yeah, like do what you need to do. You know. And
so how do you handle that? How do you deal with those haters that are,
it's a lot of like
in the workplace too sometimes?
Yeah,
right?
Especially, you know. You just gotta be, know your, to me, it came with knowing like my worth. Like knowing that I am valuable, and valuable beyond measure. Valuable beyond this comment, or valuable beyond this like, you know, this jab or whatever.
Opinion.
Yeah, it's just like knowing like if you are secure in like who you are and what you bring to the table and what your worth is, all that other stuff will be noise.
That's real.
Sometimes it'll be loud noise, but it'll be noise. And you just gotta like be like, okay, this is what I'm here for. This is what I bring to the table. This is what I'm here to do. What role do they really play in that? And is it worth me taking my eyes off this to look at this? You know, and that's the thing. And so a lot of internal conversations, man. I have a lot of conversations with myself. Like,
of course, we all do.
Like, nah, bro, not today. Like
Yeah,
that type of
yeah. I mean, I have to like get off social media sometimes and just take time to focus on my own goals. I think we all should like fast on the voices and the noise every once in a while. So I feel like everybody at some point has a dream or a vision for their life. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what separates the people who have found a way to live their dream and the people who haven't?
I keep coming back, courage.
Courage.
And courage, to me, by definition, is having meeting fear with bravery, right? So the fear is there, but you are brave enough to keep going, and then that's when courage is created. And I think that like that's the thing that like allows people to, because all of the noise, all of the other stuff is just like, no, you're like, you know what, I am terrified to walk in this room and speak my truth or to do this thing, but I'm gonna do it. And that courage is that thing that like separates you. Because a lot of people are afraid and they talk themselves out of it, or they are insecure about it. They're not confident.
Right.
Confidence is a part of courage too.
Absolutely.
Because you have to be, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like miss that, or like talk themselves down, or like let somebody else talk them out of it, and or just are afraid, and you know, and don't do it. And I think that like for me, like that's the thing. And it's a small thing, because it's not, people are always pushing be fearless, be fearless, be fearless, but it's not about not having fear. Like
fear exists.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah, but it's about like what you meet that fear with.
Right.
And not allowing that fear to consume you, and like just acknowledging like, I'm afraid. I'm gonna put this fear over here. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna focus. You know. Yeah. So acknowledge it and like set it aside.
Absolutely. When it comes to fear, one thing that I always thought is whatever you're afraid of, you got to do it.
Face. Yep.
You have to attack that fear, because if you don't attack that fear is going to consume you.
Consume you. Yep.
And once you learn how to overcome fear on a regular basis, you start to rise, and then people start to follow you, and they're saying, "Yo, I want what you have." What is that? It's courage.
Yeah, it's definitely 100% courage, man. And like I even just like came to a self-realization not too long ago about it. Like, that's what it is. Yeah.
What inspires you to succeed?
Because I know that I know from a child, man, like I've known that my purpose in this world is big, and like I've known and I've carried that. You know what I mean? Like people have told me, like my parents, teachers, like not people that don't even know me have said like there's something about you, or there's like, and I have a responsibility, you know?
Yep.
We all have a responsibility to find what that is and to follow it through. And I believe that I know like my purpose, I know, or at least pieces of it now, and I have a responsibility to fulfill that. And it's not small, and I don't fulfill it by playing small.
Hello.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's deep, bro. I love that.
It's real.
So I'm kind of a bookworm. I believe readers are leaders. I have a really nice home library that I'm very proud of. But I always talk to, you know, other leaders, and I'm always very interested to know what books you guys are reading. So if there was one book that has really changed your life, what would it be?
Ooh, this is difficult. Like, first of all, I would start with, I like love blogs, because I like people's personal stories. I'm like a very quick.
Okay,
like,
I got you.
That's my thing. Like I would read like 50 blogs a day. Like,
that would be your book.
Yeah, that's my. But a book that like really changed my life, The Shack.
Okay.
And The Alchemist. And that's probably something that everybody.
Of course.
But like those.
Classic.
It was such a journey that I went on personally while reading them. Like, you know what I mean? It's like one thing that you read and you're like, that's deep.
Yeah.
But like there's another thing that you read and it makes you go on like a self thing, you know? And like those two made me like go on this like deeper like.
Oh yeah. The Alchemist revolutionized my whole mindset of, okay, how far I can go, and to pay attention to the signs that are around you, because what you want is seeking you. And you just got to be able to say, oh, okay, this is an opportunity coming to me, and then seize that. A lot of people they're not paying attention to the signs. And, you know, I think that's what stops people from making progress sometimes. But what advice would you give to the young people in the ShineHard community who want to understand how to shine in PR and entertainment? What's the mindset?
I think that you have to be relentless. You have to know what you want and like go for it. And like if that means really sitting down and writing like down like the top things that you want to get out of a situation, out of a job, out of a project or whatever, you should write those things down, figure out like what's like really, and then like really like, you know, rank them and then figure out, and then once you find like one or two things that you like really want, go after that nonstop. Say it every day, like affirm it every single day. Like those, like one of the people would look at this and be like, even I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, that was crazy. Before I moved to New York to really pursue like PR, like on a real like like I'm doing this like agency type thing. I was living in DC and I had some Post-it notes, and I wrote all of these notes to myself, and I put it on my ceiling, on my wall, on my mirror, in my bathroom, on the doorknobs, and it was just like everywhere I went, I was reminded. If you came into my house, you'd be like, yo, what is going on with this dude? But it was what I needed to be relentless in that, you know, in my pursuit of like the next step. Like I was like, I want to work at a PR agency, and I want to do like PR like at an agency, you know, with clients, with big clients. Like that was my thing. That was my like thing, like my next goal, and I want to do that in New York City. And
so what was your action? Like, how did you translate those Post-it notes to some type of action that created something for you?
I did the Post-it notes. I would say it to myself every day. I started, and to your attraction point, because I was a Obama 08 alumni, I started working on the inauguration in 2012.
Okay.
And I was doing the PR for the inauguration while I was on the comms team for the inauguration. And a friend of mine that I worked on the Obama campaign with in 2008 was living in New York City, came down, was going to the inauguration, was picking up her tickets from me. I was like, oh, man, what's up? Like, and I gave her the tickets, and she was like, you should move to New York and do PR. Like, I had not talked to her about it. She was like, you need to come. Like, New York needs you. And that's what she said, and I was like, okay. And she introduced me to some people. Like, I mean, this was within 2 weeks of me putting up all those Post-it notes. And then I started telling everybody, I'm moving to New York. I just, because
speaking it into existence.
I'm a firm believer in that. And it makes you accountable.
Absolutely.
Like, you start telling people you're doing a thing, you got to do it.
Yeah,
because they're going to be asking you, like, aren't you supposed to be in New York? So it made me accountable to it. Like, I'm like, now I got to do it. And, like, she was like, I'll bring you in. She introduced me to the people at the agency. And, like, they were like, oh, we like him. Let's find a role for him.
And that was when you made your way up.
Yep. I moved without the job. Because she was like, I have to, like, put you in front of him.
Right.
So I moved. I moved on faith. I was like, I'm doing it. I told everybody I was moving. I'm moving. I moved without the job. I was on somebody's couch. She took me into the office hey, this is my friend. He's from DC. He just moved here.
Right.
And I met a lady, and she was like, I really like him. Like, let's find a role for him.
That's what's up, man. And that kind of reminds me of really my last question of it all. When we talk about elections and kind of the political landscape of America today, the climate is kind of rocky, right? And there's a lot going. There's a lot going on. We got Kaepernick versus the NFL. We got those horrific riots in Charlottesville that just happened. You're a public relations expert, and I want to know, how can millennials make a change or take action more than just social media? What can be done, and what's your take on things?
I think you gotta, when all this stuff started happening, even before the riots, like, there was a heaviness, right? And like, even with the election, and I think that, and I would beat myself up, like, what can I do? Because even as a expert, like, you end up in a place where you're just like, what do I do? And I think that we have to start where we are, man. You gotta start where you are. Like, for me, it was like, what can I do to make this world a kinder place?
Right.
And and it starts with me, right? So, like, from being kind to people, like telling people, like, if I have a compliment for you, like, hey, like, man, I like your hat, or like just putting love and like kindness out. And then I think that by doing that, you start to build a community, right? A community of kind people, a community of people who understand you a little bit more, like, or understand me a little bit more as an African American person, or as a person that's different from them. And then from that community is how we really make change, right? Like, we continue to build upon that. So it's like, it seems daunting, but it's really just about starting where you are and building a community of people who believe that, fundamental rights are fundamental rights, or whatever. Like, it's about building that community and then using that community to affect change. And you see that happening as well. On the flip side, you see these communities being built, and we've got to continue to nurture that and build it, and not step back and be like, this is too big for me. Like, it's just like, find your place. There's a role for every single person, and sometimes that role is just fighting where you are and being courageous where you are, because if you are the victim of something that's happening that's not fair or that's not right, then like you have an obligation to speak up and be the person that like then changes things. You know, there was a moment with Kaepernick where he was like, you know what? Nah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Rosa Parks, if you think about movements, Rosa Parks, there was a moment where
Right.
she was like,
nah. I know you seen that shirt.
Nah, right. and what's your nah moment?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
like
real.
find that. And those two things, when they first started, seemed like nothing, right? And it was just people starting where they are, being fed up, being whatever, and saying no. And look what it sparked, the movement, the community that it's built.
Yeah.
So I think that like we all have a moment where we can put our foot down and say whatever.
Yeah.
And that spark. And you never know, you know what I mean? That sparks.
You never know what that will become.
Right.
Hey man, I appreciate the hospitality.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the insight, the inspiration that you've shared with us, man. Looking forward to bringing you into the network and sharing your story with the ShineHard community. Let everybody know how they can find you online and follow you and connect with you.
Cool. So I am at Trell World on Twitter, Instagram, Trell Thomas on Facebook, and Trell World is just TRELLWORLD.
Word. You guys can find me, Johnny Bailey, at @1Johnny Bailey. Follow the project, the movement, at ShineHard Family, ShineHardFamily.org. In conclusion, guys, take action. Start where you are. There's so many things going on in this country right now. You cannot afford to be uneducated. Do your research, educate yourself on the issues, and become a part of the conversation. And that is how you can shine for the culture. Trell, appreciate you, boss.
Dude, this was so inspirational. Thank you.
No, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Respect. Again, our goal is to help young black boys and girls discover their passion and change the world, but we cannot do this without the help of the ShineHard community. Will you be the milestone donor that helps a 17-year-old black girl learn the path of a plastic surgeon? Will you be the keystone donor that helps a 22-year-old graduate break through into the tech industry? We as a community can accomplish so much together, but the time to act is now. Here's what you can do. Scroll down, click donate, and invest in the future of our community. I'm Johnny Bailey, and together we shine.